So the topic, as you know, is extremely important, as we have heard in the opening session from the EU ambassador, the BGMEA president, and other panelists. The Bangladesh, which has done tremendously well in export-led growth, primarily banking on ready-made garments, where it can take the pride of being the second largest exporter in the world, is now coming across a number of transitions. Transition in the domestic economy, a number of transition in the global stage, such as geopolitical fracture, trade protectionism, regulatory compliance getting stronger. But one other global-local linkage we have is in a development in the form of LDC graduation. This is, as of now, expected to take place this year, November, but we all know the UNCDP has lent its support for an extension. How long? We'll have to see. And there are two more formal rounds of approval required. So hopefully by September, we should know whether we do get an extension and for how long. So with or without an extension, we must now start preparing for post-LDC scenario, which is going to be a lot more competitive. Duty-free or access or preferential access will be gone. Policy space for involving TRIPS exemption, incentives are all going to be gone. And the loss of the preferential access can be very impactful for Bangladesh unless we really prepare for it. At the moment, European Union, which is our largest market, we under everything but arms, we access duty-free. However, unless we can go for either an FTA or another extension or some form of GSP's replacement, we will have to pay anywhere between 9 to 12% tariff. And that will take away a lot of competitiveness for Bangladeshi export unless we prepare both with regard to capacity enhancement, productivity improvement, business and investment competitiveness improvement, as well as better global integration. And one of the way for better global integration is through free trade agreements or economic partnership agreements. And that's the topic of today's program. So we have with us on the stage Dr. Nazrul Islam, who's Secretary Bilateral for Ministry of Foreign Affairs and who I have had the privilege of knowing and working together on a number of important Bangladesh bilateral and multilateral issues. We have Baiba Zarina, who's the Deputy Head of Delegation for European Union. We have Mr. Sharif Zahir, my dear friend, and we share one important boat together in Biman Bangladesh Airlines, who's the Chairman of Ananto Group, and also Abdullah Hil Naqib, Deputy Managing Director, Team Group. We are also expected to get joined by His Excellency Khandokar Masudul Alam, Ambassador of Bangladesh in Brussels, in the Kingdom of Belgium. As and when he joins, we will get him for his remarks. So I will start with, let us start with Dr. Nazrul Islam, Secretary Bilateral or / Secretary East and West, which pretty much covers the whole world for Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Bangladesh. You know, Bangladesh's LDC graduation is as much a diplomatic challenge as it is an economic imperative. Yet the country has not concluded any FTA except for the economic partnership agreement with Japan, for which I think government of Bangladesh, Ministry of Commerce, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you deserve a lot of credit. But as the Secretary of Bilateral Affairs for the ministry, we'd like to get your perspective as to how Bangladesh's foreign policy is getting shaped or preparing to bring in fast-track trade arrangements, trade agreements with important trade partners as well as high-potential trade partners. So, Dr. Islam, 3 minutes to you.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everyone, particularly our co-panelists and audience. And thank you, Dr. Masuriaz. You just set the tone for today's session. Challenge for Bangladesh post-LDC graduation. and what in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs we are doing. And thank Mustafizuddin for organizing this very timely seminar and 20th edition of Denim Expo. I had the privilege to attend previous sessions also. Yes, you are right. Bangladesh is behind the schedule. Meaning is that LDC graduation was supposed to be done end of this year, but we requested for deferment, and we are yet to know how long we'll get deferment. Perhaps 2 years or even 3 years we may get. Only with Japan, just before election, we signed that EPA, Economic Partnership Agreement. That is one of the milestones for current or government of Bangladesh and Ministry of Commerce, along with Ministry of Foreign Affairs, we work together. And currently, Bangladesh is negotiating with Republic of Korea, South Korea, SEPA, and also with Emirates, United Arab Emirates, with Singapore, and Hong Kong and New Zealand. But by this time, all these countries should have been completed, and few more. But we are, as I mentioned, that behind the schedule. But good thing is that we know that 12th February there was free fair election, and current government, Bangladesh Nationalist Party, led by His Excellency Mr. Tariq Rahman, Honorable Prime Minister of Bangladesh, they won landslide victory and they formed the government, and they are very committed. And perhaps we know their election manifesto. And one of the key objectives of foreign policy objectives of this current government is spearhead of economic diplomacy, and starting with FTA, PTA with many countries as possible. Even we can talk about starting negotiation of SEPA with India, because India is also a very formidable partners for economic engagement. And also with China we are working. Maybe not necessarily in coming days we will see that FTA, but some sort of understanding with China it should be, because we need to have a capacity building of our export, because we are importing a lot, 25 billion plus from China, but exporting less than 1 billion. And beyond these few countries, and most important actually, our colleague Ms. Jarina is here from EU delegation. European Union would be the topmost criteria or country or region where we should have FTA. And by this time, government of Bangladesh expressed our interest to start FTA. And good thing is that just recently we completed our negotiations of partnership and cooperation agreement with European Union. And I was the chief negotiator. And within 14 months, we completed that negotiation. And yet to be signed, but it will be signed after completion of internal process of both European Union and Bangladesh. And that's a framework agreement. But you know, Dr. Masroor, that will help us for moving to FTA, IPA, many other issues. And certainly we look forward to that. And many European delegation was in town. Yesterday I had actually meeting with German delegation, with Netherlands delegation, and we expressed our interest to have greater economic collaboration with them. And particularly among European countries, Germany is the Bangladesh's largest destination for our export, 5 billion plus, and Netherlands is 2 billion plus. And Mustafizuddin is very engaged with Dutch authorities, and every alternate year he has Best of Bangladesh in Europe, in Amsterdam. So in this way, actually, we are Ministry of Foreign Affairs, very much active, and our overseas mission, we are tirelessly, actively engaged with all countries. As many countries possible, we will have FTA and PTA. And I am happy to see that our ambassador in Brussels, Masood, is here. And he is also pushing forward for FTA with European Union. And we look forward to that. And GSP plus or plus plus would be a difficult scenario for Bangladesh, given the threshold they have from 47 to 37, they have come down. And that would be a challenge because we have very few baskets, only garments, RMG, but we need to diversify. So both FTA, PTA, and with European Union starting, and also UK, Canada, Australia, these are the countries. And perhaps you have seen that with Middle East, we need to move fast also. There we are neglecting Middle Eastern countries, but recently I have engaged with Saudi side. So we need to, because they have a good market, we need to explore that areas. And I stop here, and maybe after that we have come back.
Thank you, Dr. Nazrul Islam. I think that is very encouraging, what you have just mentioned. There is not only a priority list. You mentioned some of the names, Singapore, I think New Zealand, but you also mentioned about our very positive lesson of drawing the Japan EPA framework agreements to be signed with European Union and other countries. And very importantly, you also mentioned Middle East, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. One of our staunch competitor in ready-made garments, Vietnam. They not only have 17 active FTAs, they also have 3 in pipeline. And out of those 3, 2 are with Saudi Arabia and Qatar, which are in advanced stage of negotiations, right? Thank you very much, Dr. Islam. Ms. Zarina, over to you. So the European Union, our most important trading partner, the most important export destination, and a very high quality partnership, certainly in trade, but also beyond trade, governance, and the number of, EU's support for Bangladesh's democracy, democratic transition, elections, over the last many years have been very critical. And Bangladesh, the ready-made garment sector, and the economic community here look forward to stepped up economic relationship. Of course, an FTA would be the ultimate outcome, but we know it takes time. For India, it took almost 20 years. Hopefully, it will not take 20 years. We can do it in single digit. It'll be taking few years for sure. But in the meantime, the GSP Plus discussions are underway. In the GSP Plus, there are a number of requirements, such as double transformation, the threshold safeguard for a particular sector, including apparel, which, if implemented in the current form, can curtail Bangladesh's exports, limit Bangladesh's exports potential to EU. Is there any thought, or is there any way that this or such requirements can be relaxed for an important export or supply chain source for Bangladesh, for European Union? And in case it can be done, what is it that Bangladesh will have to do with regard to preparations and efforts? Over to you, Ms. Zareen.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Hello. And thank you for the chance of being here. So to answer your question, indeed, once Bangladesh graduates from the LDC group, which may happen this year or may happen sometime later in a couple of years, but it will happen eventually. After a period of transition of about 3 years, the country will no longer be eligible to benefit from everything but the arms trade regime. So it will be able to apply for the GSP Plus scheme. A short answer to your question is that, is the microphone fine? Yeah? Yeah? Yeah, it's fine? It's okay. Yeah, so the GSP, yeah, okay. Yeah. So the GSP Plus, the revised regulation, is in fact finalized. The discussions in the European Parliament and with member states have been finalized, and the new revised regulation will take place probably in January next year. And while I understand that some of the discussions around its elements, such as the double transformation and the safeguard clause, might sound very new, they have been part of the EU's trade toolkit for quite a while, and maybe I will take a chance now to explain what they really mean, to dispel some of the concerns. So first, the double transformation rule, it's not just some bureaucratic red tape. It is in fact a tool designed to encourage diversification in countries benefiting from the GSP Plus scheme. And how it works, it means that for a product to qualify under GSP Plus scheme for a duty-free access, it often needs to go two stages of processing in the beneficiary country. And in Bangladesh, it means moving beyond just cutting and sewing garments to developing more complex stages of production, such as fabric weaving, dyeing, or yarn spinning. And the logic is very simple, because the EU wants to see countries like Bangladesh build deeper, more resilient industries, rather than relying solely on low-value assembly work. And since Bangladesh has long enjoyed duty-free access under the EBA scheme, some steps towards diversification are expected to have been taken. And now, as Bangladesh is preparing to take steps to graduate from EBA to GSP+, the double transformation can help push further strengthening the backward linkages, meaning more local sourcing of materials and more integrated textile and apparel sector. And then there's also the safeguard clause, which often gets framed as some sort of a threat, but it's really a principle of fairness. And in fact, the EU is not the only place where such a safeguard clause exists. It's a mechanism to protect the local producers in case of surge of imports that could harm domestic industries. Now, we know that at the moment, as things stand, Bangladesh's ready-made garments may already exceed this threshold that could trigger the safeguard clause measures. However, I must say that the trigger will not be immediate. It could take up to 2 or 3 years after the transition period takes place. So there will be still some time to react. But the mere possibility of such a safeguard, of course, adds a layer of uncertainty, and it's very important in a country like Bangladesh, where the EU is account for over 80% of exports of Bangladesh. So it explains why there's so much debate and concerns about the GSP+, because the benefits for countries that are eligible for the scheme are very real, but they're also not permanent and guaranteed. And they come with conditions, and Bangladesh's window of preferential access is quite limited. But we see that the government is very aware of these challenges, as Mr. Islam mentioned, and the focus is now shifting to FTAs towards negotiating full-fledged free trade agreements, including with the EU. And that would help look for a long-term stability beyond the temporary benefits of the GSP+. We have received a formal request from the government of Bangladesh to explore an FTA with an EU, and as also Ambassador mentioned in his opening remarks, the European Commission is now assessing the feasibility of such negotiation. It will be a big step. We are not there yet, but an FTA would not just unlock the duty-free access to Bangladesh goods to the EU market. It would also really be opening new opportunities in services and investment and sustainable trade. So this is what we see as a potential alternative and future for the GSP+.
Thank you, Ms. Zarina. Indeed, it is not a very simple way forward. These are indeed regulations which are being prepared for everybody, not for a particular country, but hopefully preparations at the back end in Bangladesh, behind the border, and also negotiations beyond the border, Bangladesh, Brussels, can certainly chart out some way forward on these important milestones regarding GSP+. So that, I think, is an important segue, as we heard from Ms. Zarina on the EU's perspective. Perhaps we can now listen to the Bangladesh diplomat who's leading this negotiation with the EU in Brussels. So with us, we have virtually connected our ambassador in Brussels, His Excellency Mr. Masoodul Alam. So Ambassador Alam, we're now going to go to you to hear your views. There are two issues. Perhaps I will combine them both and get your views over the next 3 minutes on these both issues. One, we know the LDC deferral process. It's underway. We have seen one step completed through the UN CDP, but there are a couple of more steps. In your view, is the deferral likely? And if so, how long might we get it for? We have asked for 3 years. Are we going to get 3 years, 1 year, 2 years, in your view? And second, what I just asked Ms. Zarina, so your view from the other side. The GSP Plus has a number of requirements, and one of that is the double transformation, the two-stage transformation, not easy for Bangladesh to comply with in the current form. Is there any discussion underway between yourself and your counterparts in the European Union regarding how to tackle this in a favorable way, both for EU and for Bangladesh? So Ambassador Alam, over to you for the next 3 minutes, and apologies for the time constraint as we do not have a lot of time due to a late start. Over to you, Ambassador Alam.
Thank you very much for having me in this panel, and the noise from the floor was not making it easy for me to hear everything, but I understand that there are two questions. One is about the LDC graduation deferment, and the other one is about the GSP Plus and the way forward in having a continuation of market access for Bangladesh, and how we look it from Brussels side. So the first thing, I think, we all know that we have completed the first step for this LDC graduation deferment, and even CDP came up with a very good report, I would say, positive report from our point of view, referring it positively, although they have actually pointed out that there are no risk, as such, for Bangladesh to falling back below the threshold. But they have taken into consideration the externalities that are impacting the economy, and also the domestic factors combined together with the externalities that are, limiting our preparation for graduation. So these are very good and valid observations, and we definitely need to do our part from our side in terms of our preparedness when we get this deferment. But there is another indication that the deferment will probably not be the whole 3 years that we have asked for. We still should try for it, but the CDP's recommendation is there that there should be time in between. So this will depend on the negotiations in ECOSOC, and then finally through the even General Assembly process that will probably take place in September this year. But this will give us some leeway, some window in transition. So that we can get prepared for our next step in terms of especially continuation of our market access in the European market. We have been planning, in the past years about moving into the GSP Plus, and Bangladesh, as you know already, that party to all 32 international instruments that the EU's new GSP regime actually requires a country to be eligible for, among other conditionalities, be eligible for GSP Plus. So we have done our homework mostly on that particular end, but the threshold, automatic safeguard threshold in apparel and textile sector in, the product category S11A and S11B, which is now 37% for the GSP Plus countries, which will mean that Bangladesh will miss out with most of its product that comes to the European market. As we calculate our market share from the GSP countries within the European market in apparel and textile sector is already around 44-45%, which is way above the threshold of 37%. So which actually leaves us with the option of having rather an FTA rather than focusing more on GSP Plus. We are continuing on our focus on GSP Plus because there are still another 10% of products that come under that umbrella, and there may be merit in terms of having this GSP Plus at the same time to have improvements in the certain sectors that the European Union and other partners want Bangladesh to improve upon. But our primary focus now is on moving into an FTA negotiation, which we know that takes a substantial time. And the deferment of the LDC graduation will allow us maybe another, if it is a couple of years. So with our 3 years transition period added to this 2 additional year of deferment, we'll probably have around 5 years or so to negotiate this FTA You know that Bangladesh has officially approached and requested for an FTA negotiation to start, and the European Union on this side, I mean, they have been showing positive signs. I mean, I will not say that there is already a positive indication from them, but I mean, the scoping exercise that they need to do before, I mean, deciding on the commencement of the FTA negotiation is underway. You know that our Honorable Foreign Minister visited in April this year. He raised this issue with his counterpart, High Representative and Vice President Kaya Kallas. Our Commerce Minister, who visited Cameroon to attend the MC14, he actually met our, the European counterpart, Trade Commissioner Maros Sefcovic, on the sidelines of MC14. And in all these meetings, we raised this matter. And for my part, I mean, I continue to connect with the European Commission. There are three elements, as you know, that the Parliament, the Council, and the Commission. So I'm reaching out to all three elements of this, I mean, trilogue, so that to make sure that this FTA negotiation starts quickly and we can meet the timeline that we have in frame, like, I mean, another 4 or 5 years' time to start and conclude an FTA with European Union, which will not only, I mean, ensure our market access into European Union, but also be enabling more investment from European Union to flow into Bangladesh. So I'd probably stop here at this point of time.
Thank you, Ambassador Alam. It's a bit strange. On the stage, the panelists here, the sound doesn't
I think I lost
come very
the audio.
clearly to us. So I hope the audience got a good understanding, a good feel. Great. I think that's what matters more, that the audience gets to hear our panelists and gets to hear Ambassador Alam, who joined us from Brussels. But for me, as a moderator, I'd like to take a couple of points from each panelist and share with you. Unfortunately, I'm unable to do that, as none of us can hear well what has been said through the sound system. But nonetheless, I heard this much, that the deferral process discussion going well, and I heard also this much: homework for negotiations on threshold is perhaps underway. Those are good news, and would denote progress. So with that, let me turn to now Sharif Zahir, Chairman Ananto Group, who is also Chairman of one of the largest and oldest banks of Bangladesh, United Commercial Bank. And Sharif, because of this unique vantage point that you have, representing a large apparel group, but also heading the board of a very large bank. Building on that, my two questions to you, I'm combining two questions to you. One, as an industry stakeholder in the ready-made apparel sector, how do you see our foreign policy and trade policy preparing or gearing up for important global integration measures like FTA? Are we there? Are we progressing well? Are we preparing well? And second, as you may decide to speak whichever one first, but as a chairman of a large bank, my question to you is that the transition for LDC graduation and preparation is going to also require added investment on the part of the industry, green technologies, manufacturing upgrades, circularity, and so on. Do we have the banking industry, the financial sector, ready to finance that sort of requirement in our largest export sector? Sharif, over to you.
Thank you. I think on the FTA side, we have already heard the panelists. We are obviously falling behind, actually. If you look at, we are asking for a deferral now, but we have still not really progressed with EU or the countries that we need to have the FTAs with. So I will leave that to our honorable foreign secretary and our ambassador. But from a private sector initiative, the entire goal is to be competitive, actually. Whether there is duty, whether there is no duty. For example, to US, we don't have duty. We have the duty, right? We don't have a preference treatment there. But we're still competing. So I think from the private sector, what we need to do is we need to get prepared for this situation where even if we don't have the GSP or the duty-free facilities, whether we can compete. Now, one inherent problem in our industry is we are dealing with the fast fashion industry. Now, what is this actually? This has evolved in the last 2 decades or so. It is all about price competitiveness. It's all about competitiveness actually, right? The entire model is we are dealing with public companies that needs to report higher profit, higher sales every year. And all the, starting from the CEO to all the management, the buyers, all they care about is they need a better margin the next year. That's the inherent problem with a public company, right? And fast fashion requires that they need to sell the jeans at a lower price. So how does that happen actually? The reality with, with us investors in this sector is that our wages, our salaries, our utility costs, everything has gone up over the years. But if you look at the FOB price that we used to sell 10 years back to what we are selling now, it has decreased every year actually. And what has happened is it has created employment, which is true, but it has created production bases. All our customers, all they have told us is just increase production, increase production, increase production. And with knowing or without knowing, we have invested in the same product. We are heavily dependent on only a few cotton products. That is, and we all know that basically we are just competing with each other. Now, how do you come out of this? The reality is that the customer will keep on asking for a lower price. The moment you want to raise the price, they cannot accommodate it because there's no choice. Because if they lose the profit, obviously their prices are going to, share prices are going to fall, so they become uncompetitive. So the only way as individuals, like when we think of our company or if we think of Bangladesh collectively, we need to move up the value chain. So if we're doing cotton products, we need to move on to more value-added products, whether it be suits, formal wear, whether it's synthetic, activewear products. So all that opportunity is out. We need to focus on basically upgrading ourselves, right? So we are pretty sure that if we excel in MMF-based products, for example, the activewear products, where Vietnam is excelling now, there is still some margin to play around in those product categories, right? So even if the duty is imposed on us, we might be able to compete with the neighboring countries or our competitive countries. So I think it's very important that we move up the value chain and we make ourselves indispensable. So we need to create an industry which is not exposed to labor rights, forced labor, or any bad media publicity, or any risk that we expose our brands to. So if we can make ourselves, which we have already achieved, like in terms of compliance, if you see, like with all this Accord, RSC and all, I think the country has spent over $4 billion in just safety and compliance. So like that, we need to make ourselves indispensable so that whether the duty is there or not, we are still competitive. Now coming to the banking sector and the investments, I think we are already we must say we are very, this is the only country that finances back-to-back LCs completely. I don't think any other country, all our competitors from China, they're actually financing their own working capital. So all these fabric LCs that they open, they're actually using their own fund. In Bangladesh, because of the back-to-back LCs and what we have created from the 80s, our banks are actually funding our working capital as well. When it comes to green financing, central bank has come up with a lot of assistance. There is green financing, there's subsidized financing, there's LTTF financing. LTTF financing is actually a refinancing scheme from Bangladesh Bank, which is actually it's a very good offer, which offers long-term debts at a subsidized rate. So I think there is plenty of financing available from the banks. Plus the new refinancing schemes that the central bank has come up with. It's all geared for the exporters. So I think even in that way we are quite blessed. So if anything, this is going to get tougher. So we need to prepare ourselves that we have enough earnings from our business and we can plow it back in the industry. So having said that, I think we need to position ourselves. There is one catch that our foreign secretary was saying. Every country will have a limit. When the GSP goes away, there is a limit to how much they can import, even duty-free, within a product category. So again, the dependency on one product has to be like, we have to realize that we have to come out of that. So it's very important as we prepare, not only we have to prepare backward integration, we also need to diversify our product base. Otherwise, I don't think there is any other solution. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharif. I think realism and also reassurance. Realism is that costs are increasing, margins are getting squeezed, and we will see this getting more complex going forward. So we have to prepare, and value chain upgradation, value additions, diversification, and competitiveness improvement is perhaps name of the game. And we heard Javier in the opening remarks, he shared 3 points: border clearance, customs, and then logistics, speed to market, cost to market. These are important integral points, and some of which have been shared by you as well. But reassuring to know that the financial sector is ready with the instruments, different kind of trade finance, working capital, perhaps project finance going forward when we need more technology application or adoption in ready-made garments and apparel. Perhaps the capital requirements are going to change and their term reality. So maybe longer term capital from either capital market or some other long-term finance is going to be important. So let me now go to our panelist, Mr. Abdullah Al Naqib, Deputy Managing Director, Team Group. Naqib bhai, so Team Group is spearheading manufacturing exports, but also are well known for integrating sustainability into your operation. So in a way, you are bringing together some of the important pillars of post-LDC requirements, right? Manufacturing competitiveness, export market, sustainability. We also know ESG, responsible business conduct, they are going to be increasingly demanded by regional, country, company bylaws or regulations. How is Team Group preparing to respond to greater compliance demand, ESG demand, and so on? And just linked to that, as and when we move to the post-LDC phase, or post-GSP phase, there can be trade shocks depending on our preparation type and speed. How should our industry transform with regard to, let's say, pricing model, vertical or horizontal integration, market diversification to absorb or to prepare for this trade shock? So how are you preparing for ESG and compliance and trade shocks? Thank you.
Thank you very much. In fact, I think this is not the right forum because audience might get me wrong, but I think I should tell it. Look, 82% or close to 84% of the total export revenue comes from one single sector. This is the biggest challenge. There we need to work tremendously. The diversification should start right from there. As an RMG personnel, I should not tell it, but this is the risk factor that I think the policymakers are there. They should also take a note of that. So now, before I start, that what we are doing, where we are, let me quote one particular incident or whatever the situation first. The day we graduate from LDC, from that moment, we need to pay tax to the European Union, which is close to more than 12% or close to that, where we are not paying now. Our competition, those who all have already done FDA or that, to that extent, they are going to pay zero tax where they are paying 12% or more. So the gap is going to be 24%, which is directly going to affect our competitiveness. There is no doubt about it. Whereas we make the profit 5 to 7%. This is the situation that we are heading for. And that is what is the reality. And thanks to the policymakers and those who are working, they're trying hard no doubt about it, to make some agreement so that our journey becomes smooth or remains smooth. But still, so long it is not happening, a question remains. So now, how we at Team Group view the total thing. Definitely, in post-EVA environment, our understanding is buyer's requirement is going to be changed. They are going to, as per our understanding or our group's understanding, they are going to have a thorough evaluation and frequent evaluation based on few things: traceability, transparency, and long-term resilience. Keeping that in mind, at Team Group, we started our journey of total transformation. That means we took a lot of steps to meet the challenges of coming days, though knowing fully well that we do not have long-term visibility of our policies and everything. In every sector, I personally do not know. Who knows that? Do you have the clarity that after 5 years tax, what tax is going to come? What is going to be interest rate? What is going to be financial cost? We don't have. But we, at this industry, in RMG sector, we are not. We are very resilient, and that's why we could bring this industry to that level. That's how we have established Made in Bangladesh level. We should take pride. And I'm really proud of the member of this RMG industry for that. However, to meet the upcoming challenges, the way we view the thing, that buyers is going to start evaluating us before selecting in coming days as per their expectation, based on transparency, traceability, and long-term resilience, as I said. So that's how we have started taking few steps. I like to mention few in front of you. First, we have seriously involved in investing a lot of money for sustainability-led manufacturing throughout our whole group. And this we are really focusing on circular economy initiatives and water stewardship, integration of solar or the energy. In fact, we are trying to make all kind of investment in that sector. And that's how we are trying to cope up with the upcoming challenges. First, and second, we have involved or we are investing a lot of time, money for digitalization. Because we know very well that buyers are going to ask for the real verified ESG data tomorrow. That means when the expectation level we are going to face. At the same time, we know that digital product passport is coming, so we are preparing for that. We have established our own ESG dashboard so that we can establish that ESG is going to be on one of the selecting criteria from the buyer's end. This is how we are trying to digitalize ourselves in every sector. So that at one stage, once we do the compliance part, really that we check and we give data. But that data becomes so that it becomes credible and auditable. That's how we are preparing ourselves in terms of digitalization. Now, most important, that is the human capital, human capacity building. We are really focusing on that. Within the limited resources that we have, we are trying to develop them in digitalization, ESG governance, and upcoming EU requirements also. That is what we are trying to meet them. Last but not the least, I like to say that within the resources that we have, within the diversification we are trying to make. Say we had been doing basic garments, now we are trying to do the technical garments. We had been doing the basic products, now we are trying to switch to workwear. This is how the diversification we are trying to do. And last one, I must tell that the innovation there is no option of innovation, innovating the thing, innovation in process, innovation everywhere. That is also very important thing that we are trying to face or deal with. And I must tell that I feel good that now, so long we had been thinking that we all are working in isolation, now we see that we have realized the fact that this is going to affect all the industry and all the stakeholders should come forward and work together, because one single division or department or industry cannot handle this issue. Every stakeholder, every division has to participate in an equal manner. Otherwise, we really cannot handle these upcoming challenges. Now, sir? Now, coming forward, what should we do? We are undertaking this. We have still many things left to do. Now, we must have a clear strategy fixed to have this smooth transition. I believe the strategy planner, they have that. In the beginning of my speech, I said that diversification is very important, and that also should be done. We have example in front. Why can't we follow Vietnam? See, the independence, day of independence almost closer to us. See, follow them. We are 82%, they are 9% of RMG. Say, this is how the diversification should be done at the state level. And skill development. Look, I have no statistics now, but in broader aspect, I can say we have many graduates. But when we look for the skill to recruit, we don't get. We, at times, need to hire from foreigners also. Why? That skill match, we should be there. And that's why our industry cannot match that. Academicians should come up, our government should come up to make that skill ready for us. But it is going reverse. Now I like you to take a note that this is how the collaboration also should start. Now at our level, sir, I'll finish. At our level, at RMG industry level, now we are doing OEM model, following OEM model. What is that? Buyer is giving us giving the tech pack, we are just stitching and sending it back. This was required, it's okay. This was required. Now we should upgrade ourselves to ODM model. What is that? We should have our R&D, we should have our design, we should have our rest of the thing. This is how we should think about the value adding. Next step, we should try to create a brand. So this is what we should do at RMG level. Now, market diversification, definitely our honorable ministers and the representatives sitting abroad, they are trying. We at our BGMB, we are also trying to explore few unconventional markets and accordingly, and we will do it. Last, sustainability and circularity should be key of our strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, Nakib Bhai. Excellent points. I think your three-pillar anchor, transparency, resilience, and traceability. I think that sets the stage very well for what is needed for the preparing for the transformation. And great to hear about team's own story, own preparation. You know, not only energy efficiency and solar or renewable, but also data-driven decision making and digitalization and automation. Thank you. So we're coming almost closer to our to the end of our session, because we have gone over time now, 5:23. So I'll come back to our two final panelists for one more time. First to Ms. Bibi Zarina. Ms. Zarina, EU Bangladesh has been discussing potential trade agreements for a long time, and now, as we have heard, Bangladesh has made an official request for a potential FTA. In your view, what would be the benefits for Bangladesh if such trade agreements get through? So, over the next 2 minutes.
Thank you. First of all, as I said, that we have received the request, and currently the assessment of this request is still taking place. So, and I really hope that we will be able to communicate an answer, a positive answer, sometime soon. But I don't want to preempt the outcome just yet. But if there is a political agreement to start a negotiation on FTA or an EPA, however you call it, I think it's obvious that it would be it would unlock a lot of new opportunities for Bangladesh, and it would really elevate the economic relationship between Bangladesh and EU to a complete new level. At the present moment, I would say that the question is not so much how and if Bangladesh would benefit from such an FTA, because the advantages should be clear given the constraints of the GSP Plus regime and especially the safeguard clause and what the safeguard clause could mean for the RMG sector and the exports to the EU. It would be too early to quantify the benefits an FTA could bring. But I think an even more relevant question at the moment is to ask how prepared Bangladesh is to actually enter such a complex negotiation, and what can be done already at this stage. Because the reality is that FTA negotiation is something that takes many years. It's a very complex and multi-layered process. And it really depends also how much flexibility and political will both parties bring to the table. We heard that, for example, in the case of India, it took almost, more than 17 years to come to an FTA with the EU. Vietnam, for example, was a much faster example, a little bit over 3.5 years, because Vietnam proactively addressed the EU concerns up front. And for Bangladesh, the timeline could be anywhere in between, but Bangladesh should take some of the right steps already. And what we think will be conducive for a smoother and faster progress towards a prospective at this stage still, FTA, is that Bangladesh demonstrates clear understanding of and alignment with the EU interests. And what it means in practice, it means first sending a clear signal that the country is open for business, because the EU investors are still facing major hurdles when it comes to unpredictable tax system, to bureaucratic red tape, weak contract enforcement and licensing delays and customs inefficiencies and so on. Second, it means building trust by removing tariff and non-tariff barriers that currently limit the EU exports and investments, because FTA means fairness and market opening that goes both ways. Third, the level playing field must be truly level for all operators, ensuring that the competition is truly based on commercial merit. And first and finally, and perhaps most critically, is that Bangladesh must keep improving its labor standards, where substantial progress has been made, including in the BLA amendments. But the foundation is clearly there, but sustained effort is truly needed to close the remaining gaps. So these are some of the essential elements where we see Bangladesh can already make some steps to bring an FTA closer to reality, and the EU is certainly committed to continue our dialogue in supporting Bangladesh in the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Arena. So the country must signal through its action and intent. The country is open for business. Standards, including labor, are going to be important. Dr. Nazrul Islam, our final mic to you, 2 minutes. FTA, economic partnership agreements, require government-wide collaboration. There's Ministry of Commerce, Investment Authority, Standards Authorities, Customs, Central Bank. We have Deputy Governor Habib Bhai right there. And of course, Ministry of Foreign Affairs as a diplomatic lead. How do we ensure? In general, coordination is weak in Bangladesh government. That's one of the challenge. So how do we ensure that going forward for important FTAs, such as with EU and other high priority countries you mentioned, the right level of coordination is there to expedite the move towards more FTAs? Over to you, Dr. Islam.
No, thank you. Before I answer your question, our Ambassador Abida Islam is here. She was asking whether Latin America is in the radar. Yes, Bangladesh, Latin America, Africa, and Southeast Asia also. We are yet to be tapped into our post-LDC graduation. We need to expand our trade, not only Europe and only America. And coming to your point, just I quickly tell 4 or 5 points. One, Mr. Naqib mentioned about capacity building. Certainly, that has to be done industry-wide, ESG compliance and other things, and DPP is coming. So capacity building, in my office, one garment industry owner, he is closing his business. And why these businesses are being closed, that has to be examined by Bangladesh, and supporting all this industry to remain in the business. In this context, budget is being announced tomorrow, but incentivization is not alone. There should be a capacity building approach through industry and also government. And next come coordination. Obviously, Ministry of Commerce, Foreign Ministry, BIDA, Law Ministry, Home Ministry, all these across the board, where actually labor standards, environmental standards coming up, European compliance and other things. So coordination is very key. And fourth is actually this FTA negotiation team building. It is actually, we must admit that there is shortcomings and we need to move up. Ministry of Commerce, Foreign Ministry, BIDA, everything should be joined in this. And finally, one point actually, overseas missions, our 85 missions, what they are doing. I'm Secretary Bilateral, I know what they are doing. They are not up to the level. And it is not criticizing per se, I should not be undiplomatic, but certainly we need to improve much more. And final point, if Vietnam can do, why Bangladesh cannot do? We should ask ourselves, and that's why from the government, I should change myself. We should work with business. We should not be seeing them other party. We should be seen as one party, Bangladesh. If we work together, current government, they are trying to do that. If the stated policy, it is translated into action, then it is achievable. And we would like to see that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Islam. I think we finish on that very excellent note coming from one of the top policymakers in the country who's overseeing many of our diplomatic outreach, including economic diplomacy, one of its important cornerstone is trade diplomacy and trade integration. So we have heard from our very esteemed and a very richly diverse set of colleagues, panelists here. We have industry, we have financial sector, we have policymakers, both from our destination markets, but we also have policymakers from our country. And few points come across very clearly from all of their points. Number one, Bangladesh has to prepare meaningfully and effectively and walk the talk in terms of preparing for the post-LDC competitiveness. There, not only we'll have to prepare through our transforming our production capacity and efficiency, but also through preparing for better regulatory compliance, global regulatory compliance, and also improve efficiency factors such as ports, customs, border clearance, and so on. Number two, in this preparation, trade agreements can be extremely helpful. They can bring certainty, structure, they can put long-term partnership, trusted partnership between Bangladesh and our very important bilateral and multilateral regional bilateral, multilateral and regional trading blocks and trading partners. But getting there is not going to be easy. It's going to be highly rewarding, but it's not going to be easy. Bangladesh will have to prepare with regard to focus on diplomacy, focus on commercial and economic viability of each agreement, prioritizing with whom we go for these agreements, because ideally we'd like to have it with all our trade partners, but not everything is possible in the same speed or in the same phase. So we prioritize. And while prioritizing, we also need to develop a number of Bangladesh's own benchmarks in order for us to give that signal to our counterparts on the other side of potential trade agreements that Bangladesh means business. Bangladesh can be an important bilateral or regional partner for our target or potential audience for our trade agreements. And finally, this is going to require two sets of coordination. One set within Bangladesh government, because multiple ministries, agencies are critical and relevant to trade agreements. But the second set is public-private, because the private sector, our exporters, as well as our broader private sector, they are at the forefront of either losing out, of not preparing, or gaining from the preparations and trade agreements. So their views, their inputs are going to be important. So with that, let me bring this session to a closure, and I thank everybody, our panelists and the audience, for your time for this session. Thank you very much.
Can I request the guests to